start, we just wanted to commend that amazing panel. Everything that was discussed there is so critical, so important, and so much of our shared interest in terms of why we publish Sweet Jane magazine, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So to kind of kick this off, Barbara, why did you get into journalism?
Well, Katy,
we didn't practice this. Don't worry.
No, it's funny because you asked me the question, and it's such a myriad of things. I started in high school in the yearbook. I didn't even work for the newspaper, and I just loved how doing the yearbook got me involved in a community and taught me so much about that community. And then I went to college. We both did. We both studied journalism, and it teaches you so much about the media these days gets so much flack for everything.
Oh my gosh!
But it teaches you that really what goes into a journalistic story and the importance of it. And when I did a column and when I lived in Isben for a little bit, people would come up to me, or I did a story and they'd be like, "Wow, thanks for sharing that." And I think it's overall just the power of writing and communication, and it can be so powerful, and it can make people feel less alone, and it can make people feel valued. And totally, that's why I think I got into it. It's just it's necessary in our world as much as difficult as it can be sometimes.
So true. Yeah. I asked Barbara that question because a lot of what we do is focused on making sure people can trust information around cannabis. There's so much more around the plant now. It's stronger. There's more risk involved, as we just learned from our previous panel. And where do we go to find that information? And that's ultimately why we started Sweet Jane.
Exactly, because there are your top publications, your New York Times, your Forbes that are reporting on this, but sometimes it might feel a little removed. It's not always people that know a lot about the industry, or they're just doing a basic hard news stories. So we felt the need to be a voice, but not an advocate. Not an advocate, but also an objective voice.
An objective, balanced voice is what Barbara's saying. And that's what we want to share with you. So before we kind of get started into the inside baseball, so to speak, inside weed, inside bong, whatever you want to call it, a lot of what we focus on is making sure that you have information that you can trust. And for a lot of women, getting a freelance opportunity with a publication to write is a big deal. And it is an opportunity to not only get into the cannabis industry if you are sitting on the sidelines as a general consumer or a new consumer, but you're curious. And so you want to cover it to learn more for yourself, but also because for a lot of moms who are home with their children and maybe not working right now and missing that opportunity, having some freelance assignments can be just the difference that you need to still feel a part of something. And we get that. So at Sweet Jane, one of the really neat things is that we mostly work with women, and a lot of our contractors are also moms who are working from home. So we take great
shout out to Leah. We see your comments.
Yes.
And also please feel free to have any comments, or hey, if you disagree with something, put it in the chat. Let us know. We're open for discussion here.
Totally. So I'm going to hand it over to Barbara, who's going to talk a little bit more about the nitty gritty about being a quality cannabis journalist. And then we'll wrap up with some tips on how to get involved.
Well, you can throw in anything here, but I think what's important, it's the media landscape is changing, as I think we all know, and I think part of the reason is we're dealing with very serious issues that there's been a war on facts. There's been a war on there. Suddenly a lot of journalists are coming out of the woodwork and saying, I can't be unbiased anymore. I have to advocate because that's the only way I feel I can get anything done. And I think cannabis is in that space in a lot of ways. We spent a long time dealing with the stigmatization of this plant, and we feel the need to shout it from the rooftops about how important it is. And I think that is important, but totally vital. But I think one thing Sweet Jane tries to do is cut through the noise on both sides and really just provide the facts and provide the studies and provide the information we can on both sides.
Absolutely.
Because it's and I think another side of that is because we're all here, we're in a like-minded group. A lot of us believe the same things. We understand what the struggles are, but how are we going to get other people on the side, or to let them know.
Right. The other moms who are part of the community, like Danielle was saying on social media.
Yeah. Or like the grandmother who has arthritis pain and like doesn't know how to fix it, or like there's so much. And part of that is bridging gaps. And I think we both believe, and maybe that's the journalism nerds in us, but we both believe that comes through information, and it comes through often unbiased information.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's good to know. And if you are a writer and you're interested, I think it's important to know what your goal is with it. You can be a cannabis advocate, and there are publications that want you to advocate in your topics. They want to give your opinions. We like that too. We like that. We call them editorials. We call them columns. We appreciate opinions. But I think when you're looking at writing for a publication, spend some time looking at the stories they post. Look at the stories they highlight on their front page. Talk with the editor or whoever the producer or whoever's assigning you the story or whoever you've pitched to, and really see what they want, how many sources they want you to interview, because I think every publication wants something different, and it's important to know that going into it. Mm-hmm. Do we have any questions?
No, I mean, Sabrina and Adriana, thank you for commenting. We'll keep going. Keep going though if you have questions. I'll be watching it while Barbara talks.
But we do both. Like Leah in this last issue, Limar, she published one you'll have to get, sweetjanemag.com, but she did a wonderful story about parenting while high and how cannabis has personally helped her be a better parent. She also did a story that was like a little more objective, and it was looking at some of the cannabis moms, the canna moms who are advocating. Right. And so it's there are different kinds of stories, and there's a place for everything. But I guess I would advocate that there needs to be a place for that information. That hey, we're putting this in front of you, and you need to make your own decisions. Just like Bianca and the whole panel was saying about cannabis and pregnancy. It's like our hot button issue right now, right? And
we have a story in issue 3 about pregnancy where we actually talked to not only scientists and an integrated MD, and it's mixed bag, just like Danielle was saying. Like we're getting mixed views, and we're going to give you the information of both views so you can make a decision for yourself. That's journalism. That's balanced journalism. Yeah.
Yeah. Katy worked on that story. She did an amazing job. But it's because you have to. And I guess unfortunately with cannabis too, we haven't been able to get a lot of the information on it. We know the things that alcohol, to an extent, we know what alcohol does to us. We know what Tylenol does to us. But we don't have the studies. So we're learning this all as we go. But I think it's important to share that information. Hey, we don't know, we don't have the answer, but here's what we do know.
You're good.
I think that I think I don't know if you want to talk a little about kind of just the tips on how to get into the industry and what that involves.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously a lot of what we're saying is part of being a quality journalist is finding the balance. And if we're looking for writers, we're going to encourage you to pitch us a story that may seem uncomfortable or unfavorable sometimes. We know, especially in a group like this, we're all pro cannabis. Like we both toked, we have kids, I have kids, she has fur babies, like obviously there's a reason for us to be here and find this community. But we also see the value of making sure you know the other side. Sweet Jane is here to help you make decisions, not tell you what to do. And so when we look at stories and when we're working with writers or other contractors who might have an idea for us, the biggest thing we're looking for is that objectivity to begin with, right? And so when you bring a story idea to us, we want to make sure that you have some potential sources to work with that are on both sides of the issue. Obviously, a very short, condensed summary of what you want that story to be. Don't feel like you have to send the whole manuscript. We don't need that. We want to make sure to commission you and pay you accordingly when we get to that point. And most editors are that way. So I'll backtrack just a little bit. Once you have your idea and you've put it into kind of a concise presentation, email the editor. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to lose. The worst thing that could happen is they say we're not interested. But in my entire career working with freelance writers, it was always just, if you can get enough confidence to push send, chances are that editor is going to be grateful for the story idea because we're busy. We're doing a lot. We're editing, we're managing, we're adminning a lot of what's going on, that when a quality writer comes to us with a really killer story idea, chances are we're going to jump right on it. And even if not, you've now introduced yourself. And if a story comes up that's right for your portfolio, then we're going to reach out to you again.
Yeah. But I think that's half the battle is just doing the pitch. And the pitch can be short and sweet.
Totally.
It can be, give us like 3 to 5 sentences. Like, doesn't need to be a big thing. Don't write the story beforehand. I know if you're submitting a book, you generally have to have a full manuscript. With articles, you don't need that.
Danielle would know about that.
Yeah. You don't need that with articles. We just want the idea, and then they'll hopefully work a little back and forth with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think social media is also a good tool. You can follow these editors. You can follow the publications, see what they're
Slide
posting.
into their DMs.
Yeah.
Nothing to lose, right?
Yeah. So it's there's a lot of ways, and not every editor always has their email right available online, but usually you can do a little digging. They usually have a pitch section on our website, letting you know, here's how you write, here's how you pitch. They'll give you some direction typically. And I think, sorry, I'm just looking at our chat.
Oh, do we have questions? Are there specific educational requirements needed to be? No. Do you smoke weed and are you interested? Have you dabbled in writing, or do you feel confident kind of when we talk to you about what we want the scope of the assignment to be? That's great. Like Barbara, as our editor, will reach out to you, have conversations with you, talk to you about your idea, how to kind of proceed with it. And a lot of just kind of direction. Like we're all in this together and we all have a story to tell and we all know of stories. I think my husband made fun of me once where I said, I see life in stories. And if you are a writer, that is kind of how you operate a little bit. Something is always clicking for you where you want to learn more. And, Sweet Jane really was born out of me wanting to learn more. So if you're curious about a topic, then don't hesitate to pitch us about it.
And I would even say, like, you don't even have to smoke weed if you want to be right press. It's not. You don't even have to be a woman. We have some male writers, we have some male photographers. It's. I think it's a keen interest. Let us know. Tell us what you want to write about. Tell us what you're interested in, and we'll work through it with you. I think also we're here to like amplify female voices, and we're 100%. Even if you don't have a ton of experience, like come talk to us. Like we would love to work with you. We want to hear your experience and your point of view and see what we can work on together.
There's a large, I think, takeaway from the last session too about how talking about it, us being the leading example, helps normalize it for others. And as a writer for any cannabis outlet, media outlet, that's the same thing. You're getting the opportunity to help normalize a plant because you're doing the research, you're talking to people, you're sharing the fact that you drafted and published this story with others. That is a form of normalization. And we are obviously very supportive of that.
There's one for you in there, Katy.
What's it like to start your own publication? How much time do you have? It's an endeavor, but the very cool thing about this space, and it's something I've always said with cannabis, is because we're still a growing, emerging industry, the barrier to entry is low. As the women pointed out in the last session, funding obviously is a huge barrier. I was fortunate to self-fund how I started Sweet Jane, but not everybody else has that opportunity. And so that's kind of a big component of starting, I think, any brand in cannabis, not just a media brand, but like all things where there's a will, there's a way. And if I hadn't been struggling to find quality information during my pregnancy and wondering what my level of consumption would be safe, there wouldn't be a Sweet Jane. So, everything there's a tipping point and you'll find yours, and don't be afraid. And we are more than happy to visit with anybody who's interested in starting a publication and share any kind of support that we can give you.
Yes. And
what does short mean when submitting? That's a great question. I'll let you take that one.
Well, and Diana brings up a good point. And Helix, we just saw your question where y'all reading questions from just the comments section. So keep posting there. Diana brings up a good point. She is also one of our writers, has a few stories coming out in this next issue.
Diana.
But 250 words I think is good. Let us know the story. Let us know what you want to cover. If you can, provide a couple sources you want to talk to. It's not necessary. We can help you find sources as well. But I think just overall, what's the vision? And what what do you want to cover in it? And that's generally good. Let us know a little about you, just, and then, send us any necessary links. And I think that's generally a good way to go.
Yeah. So one really cool thing about, again, where we're at in covering cannabis is the consumer still has to weed through what is content marketing and what is useful information. And so there's really like we're giving a call to action right now to say, if you have a critical story, a story that is going to help other people understand their consumption, their role in the industry, what is safe, what is risky. We want to hear about that, because that's the kind of stuff that brands who tend to, lean on content marketing aren't necessarily sharing. We are seeing more education in the industry, and that's huge. It's more than it was when we started Sweet Jane, and any ounce of education is helpful to a consumer potentially finding whatever their sweet spot is with their cannabis consumption. We support that. But we also know that it's not all positive. And we want to, for example, we have a really great story in the next issue about the discrepancies in childcare. Like, a lot of mothers who want to work in this industry, I think Dashita kind of touched on it. Like, it's really hard to be a parent and get into this industry. And a large part of that is, like, we don't have companies that are offering any subsidies for childcare or even on-site childcare, because that's so against the legalities of how a license may function. And that's kind of keeping a lot of mothers out, and that shouldn't be the case. So we're helping to expose things like that. So we run the gamut from a good editorial to a good expose, and we want everything in between. So if you have ideas, come. We are ready to hear them.
Totally. Do we have any other questions?
Helix says, do you think cannabis prohibition related to abortion? Because a woman would rather abort, especially early on, versus having children taken away, being raped, possible at proper orphanage because THC in her system. Ooh, Helix, that is an incredible question. And I don't even know that it's one that we're qualified to answer. I think there is an extremely unfortunate scenario in the safety of maternal health, in making sure a mother is safe if she's decided to consume cannabis, much like Casey pointed out in her introduction, to help her be healthy and well through her pregnancy, versus, being faced with the risk of possible intervention from Child Protective Services. Women are faced with an incredibly difficult choice at the beginning of their pregnancy on what they want to do with their cannabis consumption. And if there's one thing that I hope we can achieve as a group, a community, is that we can be loud enough that someday a woman won't have to be faced with that critical of a choice.
Yeah.
Let's see. I agree. I wrote that one. Nice, Diana. Okay. So, a few more tips. If you have written and dabbled in writing, we'd still love to hear from you. Barbara's an excellent editor who is not afraid to work with new writers. And
it's so fun.
Of course, that gives us great pride if we're helping somebody achieve a dream that they've been looking to do, because so many people, like Tokeativity, have taken a chance on Sweet Jane to help us achieve our dreams. So, don't be afraid.
Side note, we are looking for some social media help. So if anyone is particularly savvy in the social media realm, let us know. editor@sweetjanemag.com is my email, or you can contact us through the website.
Bianca, we're looking at you. We could use some social media help, but I mean, social media is such an extension of journalism in and of itself, right?
It is, yeah. And it has to be,
yeah.
It's all writing, right?
It is all writing. So I don't know how much time we have left. I am looking to my Tokeativity professionals to give us some kind of indication, but
we can keep talking.
We can keep talking. We'll keep going about this. So issue 3 is basically coming back from the printer on Monday.
Yes.
So we get to see it in physical form. I think a lot of you have obviously given us some feedback, have been writers, are included, as I mentioned at the top of the introduction, are included in the magazine. But this is our parenting edition. So timely to what we're talking about right now. And maybe you can give everybody a little bit of a preview, and I'll watch our questions.
Yeah. we have a few different sections. We have our well-being section. We have some features. We have a whole section on tough conversations. How do you enter the cannabis conversation with people that you love? And also, how do you talk to your children about cannabis? A big one. And we kind of break it up by age and what age are most appropriate for which things. We have a feature on like Katy said, childcare in the cannabis industry. We also profile Miss Kindness Ramirez. She's one of our features, and all the amazing work she's been doing, which I know we all know, but wow, amazing human being. And Toy Hutchinson, she is the new CEO of Marijuana Policy Project. We got to talk with her about all she's doing. We didn't include this because it just happened after we went to print, but she just addressed the UN the other day about global cannabis. This woman's making a ton of change in our industry, and she's a canna mom. And she told us a little about her story of how she talked to her kids about it for the first time. One story that I felt was necessary, but it wasn't necessarily the best, best shining example of cannabis, is that a lot of teenagers right now are consuming concentrates because it's easier it doesn't smell as bad. They're consuming dabs in school. They're using vapes in school with concentrates, and a lot of them are getting sick and ending up in the hospital. And looking a little about some legislation that went in place in Colorado. Has that been successful? Is it a good idea? So just talking about different things like that. We talk about, is it safe to give your kids CBD from a legal perspective? We look at some of the best books, Danielle, looking at you, about for parents on cannabis, and also children's books on what kids.
Miss Kindness.
Yes, on what teaching your kids about cannabis.
Yes.
We've got a range. We have a whole resources section on things that parents consuming cannabis, parents in the industry might want to learn about. It's a full issue.
I think one of my favorite calls in preparing that resource section was talking to poison control. So if anybody's had the worst fear of their entire life, or they think their child ate an edible, you can safely call poison control. And so when we reached out to them, kind of investigating this, they were so grateful. Get the word out. How can we help you? It is a free and easy service that can put a parent's mind at ease pretty quickly. So it's amazing to kind of see some of these things come together. A couple of questions. Helix, thank you for the continued feedback. I really encourage, for those of you with questions on pregnancy, to pick up issue 3. Again, we did some extensive reporting and research to really see where we're at right now on the pregnancy conversation. The summary is it's still a gray area. It's unfortunate, but there is more research happening, especially in Oregon, specifically at OSHU, where they're testing on primates. So what they can't test on humans, they're giving apes consumption products and testing their babies and the fetuses and all of that kind of stuff. So we are getting closer, which is really exciting. We also talked to Dr. June Chin, who's an integrated medicine doctor who will prescribe cannabis to clients given certain experiences that they've done to kind of get to the point where they feel comfortable using it. So pregnancy, we really encourage you to check out this piece. It is, in our opinion, one of the more comprehensive and balanced looks at where we're at right now at that particular topic. Diana also asked about what is helpful on photos. Obviously, we're a small independent publication, so we don't have the Condé Nast art department helping us, although it would be lovely if we did.
If they want to help, we're open to it.
I mean, if anybody from Condé Nast is on, give me a call. No, but it's important, I think, as a brand or as a source to just keep your headshots up to date in high resolution. We print a magazine, like we're kind of old school in that respect. And so we want to make sure that we have a really great, strong, high-res photo of you or your brand or your product to publish if we reach out to you. That doesn't mean that we don't also commission photographers. So if any of you are on the event right now, we do always want to work with photographers as well across the country. Mm-hmm. Even if you're a photographer and you have a photo story idea that you want to pitch us, same rules apply. Don't be afraid to email the editor. Make it a short summary.
Yeah. And
I'm talking too long.
No, you're good. And I think, I mean, sometimes I'm even like, you have a story about maybe something kind of obscure, like, all right, we're talking about something with well-being with cannabis, and it's like, I just don't want to post another photo of a weed plant because everyone does it. But sometimes I'll just like start Googling and look at stories and what other stories are doing. And I'm not saying copy them, but sometimes you just brainstorm different ideas. I mean, sometimes
100%.
things are posed, sometimes it's an illustration. We also do, I mean, sometimes we take illustrations from online.
Absolutely.
It is hard though. It's hard just to figure out exactly what works, but I think it's
but that's normalization, right? So once we kind of get to a point where people are taking more photos of themselves, whether you're an entrepreneur, a mom, or whatnot, that's helping normalize, and we get the opportunity to republish those.
Yeah.
Right.
But high res is important. It's not as important for online, but most of our cameras, most of our phones today, luckily, take high res images. I think sometimes we edit them, like we add these filters, which is fine, but sometimes that makes it a little lower res, or you send it and it makes it. But it's funny. I mean, it's, even though we have all the technology, sometimes it's like, oh, we need a high res image, and people are like, what? This is the highest I have. So something to keep in mind. Keep your photos on a drive. I think even if you have stock images too, like maybe you've spent a lot of time taking photos of different products or different like people smoking weed. It's like we love to look through those drives just for general photos.
We've actually done that. We've worked with influencers and said, do you have stock photography? And we will pay you to run that stock photography. So there's a few secrets to how the sausage is made. I hate that analogy, but I don't know how best to explain it to kind of help you see how we put together a magazine. And again, having the ability to work with brands or people who have good photography certainly is a big help.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe you want to talk about the next 2 issues that are coming out.
The next 2 issues, we're not done this year. Yes. So our next one, which will be out late August, I believe, is the how-to issue. So we're looking at everything from how to smoke a bong to how how to introduce cannabis in the bedroom, products that might work to stimulate feelings, or how does cannabis in general maybe make you more intimate with your partner. We're looking, but we're also diving into some other, kind of deeper issues, how to make cannabis accessible. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's affordable. And what are the issues with that? What are the obstacles? How, if you're someone that is, trying to make ends meet but you use cannabis as medicine, what are some strategies so you don't have to pay huge amounts? We're kind of looking for other stories too. It's just a basic, but the idea is how to. And we're going to cover some amazing women doing some amazing things. How to start a cannabis business from the ground up, how those kind of stories. And then our issue after that, which we're very excited about, mostly because our husbands are writing it for us, is our grow issue. We're going to do we're doing a whole issue on growing cannabis, and not just how to grow it, but what are some companies working on this? Seed cultivation, genetics, looking at
making your own medicine.
Organic versus non-organic. What are the you're making your own medicine. What goes into that?
Yeah, it's a big part of empowering mothers in this situation. And hopefully nobody feels that growing at home puts you back in that closet, but it gives you an opportunity to make your own medicine if you choose to. And I always like to say it can be just one plant. It doesn't have to be a ton, but enough. We'll also be looking at, a lot of the state laws that are coming down right now, new legislation especially, is prohibiting grow at home. And so kind of how you can get behind your state representatives, senators, to really help make things possible so that you, again, still have that freedom to make your own medicine. If you can grow tomatoes, you should be able to grow cannabis, in my opinion. Okay, let's see. Some more questions here. What are your guidelines for stock photo submissions from influencers?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's, we high res, obviously. It's kind of, let us know what you have. Send us everything on a Google Drive or what you're willing to share. Let us know your rate per image. Guideline, sometimes we're going to want to know context, if it's a post shot. We don't, some of them are more illustration, and that's okay. But if it's more of a news photo, like, hey, here's a photo of a protest, then we're going to want to know what protest, what was the date, So sometimes we will ask more details, but in general, if you feel proud of your images, send them along. And we can't promise we're going to use them or have a place for them, but we certainly might.
Absolutely. And we should add too, just because we have our print edition, we are also live online. So we have sweetjanemag.com, where eventually a lot of our content will end up from print editions, but the print editions are still a very exclusive thing. But we are always looking for story ideas. So don't feel confined to our parenting, how to, or grow at home issue.
Totally.
Don't.
We have a column that the beautiful Lisa Snyder just started with for Tokeativity. We're doing a monthly column with the Leaf 411 nurses. We have all kinds of content online, and sometimes it's online, and then maybe we updated it and put it in a print issue. So but we're open to both. We're open to anything. Send us. If you have a contributor's note, an editorial, we love to hear from you. We love your opinions and your ideas. And I believe Desiree asked upcoming issues.
Yes, you can find them on our website, by Sweet Jane on our website. We also have some other goodies on there if you want to shop around. Right now we have issue 1 and 2 on sale. So if you want a full set, you can set yourself up with one. It's a really beautiful publication that we're obviously proud of, but a large part of it was that we wanted to create something that you felt like you could leave on your coffee table. And you'll see that that's absolutely the direction that we've gone, even though there's some heavy hitting content inside the covers. So I think that kind of is getting us close to our time. Barbara, just kind of to wrap up, what story are you working on right now that you're most excited about?
Oh, well, I've been looking at this for a while. I talked a couple of months ago to Alice Moon, and I'm sure a lot of you know her. She's very active in the cannabis community, and she works in communication. And she also is someone that's very vocal about cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. And I'd love to tell you exactly what that is, but we don't really know. It's not even classified as an issue that people come into the hospital with, even though people are coming in. But from the basic understanding I've learned so far, it's some people, their bodies can't handle THC, or they can't handle it in large amounts, and they end up throwing up and they end up getting very sick. And I think it's not the shining light on cannabis. I know it's not what we're about. We want the plant to be all healing, but there are bad sides too. And it's important that we look at those, because we don't want people throwing up all the time, or we want people to be aware if they have a problem. And, she kind of shed a lot of light on it for me. It's not necessarily a story about her, but she just kind of helped lead me to understand it more. And so I've been working on that story and starting to talk with some medical professionals about what this is, what do we know, and how can we work to, just understand it more.
That's awesome. Nicole, I love that you're teaching this.
Nicole, we should talk.
Call us, Nicole.
Yes, message us on Instagram, or hit me up on editor@sweetjanemag.com, because I'd love to talk with you. I'm just starting the story, and I just need to understand everything, because it's a big issue to wrap my head around. I feel like for anyone, it's a big issue. So please let me know.
And that's actually such a great segue, hopefully, for Tokeativity. Big issues in cannabis. They all feel big at times, but hopefully together with this community, we can make them less big and more understanding around them. So we certainly appreciate the opportunity to share with you all how to, reach out to any magazine, not just Sweet Jane. There's a lot of quality ones out there. Of course, there's the Patriarch, High Times, but it's nice to see a lot of independent female-run magazines coming onto the scene, both local and national. And just don't be afraid. Reach out to an editor and give them a chance. So, yeah. Any other specific questions about tips or how to get involved before we wrap up here? Feel free to throw it in.
Looks like we got about 1 or 2 more minutes.
Awesome. Helix, thank you so much for all of this great feedback that you're giving. It just shows how passionate people are about pregnancy and cannabis and what propaganda there is around it. And I think, they even said in the last session, so much of that topic is being able to empower yourself for your own health. And I guess at the end of the day, that's really being a mom in cannabis, is taking care of your own health. And if you use cannabis to do that, more power to you. It's a really great space to be in.
Yeah.
So Yes. Well, thank you, Tokeativity. This was wonderful. Thank you, everybody who attended. Again, sweetjanemag.com, issue 3 out now, pre-order. They'll be shipping next week. We're so excited. So thank you. And don't be afraid. Editor at sweetjanemag.com. Give us a shout.